Hey guys, welcome to the review show. My name's Austin. Once again, we're here with Sean and Rook. You guys really killed it with the Indiana Jones spoiler review. I was actually really shocked just getting that high with that one, and just in general because of how long that review was. So we're gonna do the same thing with Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning. Um, Probably for not as long. I don't think we need to talk about Mission Impossible for an hour, but there's still bits that I do want to talk about in this film that I couldn't really necessarily talk in my normal review. And so, but we both really enjoyed the film. I think, probably my second favorite film of the year. I just saw Sound of Freedom, so I think that one was really great as well. So there's
Yeah,
a lot
that's
of.
on my list.
You haven't seen it yet?
No, I
No.
haven't had a chance. Yeah.
Oh, it's a must see. I recommend if you have like a kid that's like 13 years old, take well, you don't, of course, but for the audience that's watching, like I highly recommend taking your, somewhat older out to see it because this is something that needs to be addressed and that they should know as well. But we're here to talk about Mission Impossible. So I'll do a review for Sound of Freedom because that was a great film. But so what I don't know. How do you want to start about this? You just want to talk about the stuff that we really liked. Do you want to go bit by bit? I don't. How do you want to do this? It's
Um,
Mission Impossible, so I don't know.
let's talk about just this is the seventh film
It's the
that
seventh
they've
film
made, and it seems like uh, they just keep getting better.
for sure.
Although, a lot of the behind the scenes kind of gave away the motorcycle jump that
Yeah,
he did with the backpack on and did the parachuting thing. But we didn't know the context of what that was. We just saw him jumping off a cliff. And then when you finally see in the movie that he's trying to land on top of a train, a moving train, uh, that's great. I mean,
yeah.
it really, I mean, I know we're kind of spoiling things. So if people haven't seen the
Spoilers.
movie,
Welcome.
sorry.
I mean, like they
Um,
should know by the title. Um,
yeah. But so that to me was a really, really cool, you know,
yeah.
finalization of what that was.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about more of that scene later because there's something about that scene that I don't necessarily like. It's more of a nitpick if anything because it's something that really popped out to me, comparable to the other Mission Impossible films, just how it was filmed. But still overall, the stunts are nuts, and and for the way that the next film that's gonna be, I'm curious if they're gonna do go underwater. I'm curious if they're gonna
Oh,
do,
yeah, totally. Totally. They're
yeah,
going underwater. I
and
mean, they
there's
got to get to the sub to get in
yeah.
that sub in order to uh,
Is he gonna do like
deactivate
Is he going to do like a
Gabriel or
deep
whatever.
dive stunt underwater?
Something tells me that they'll get down inside the sub and then somehow the Mission Impossible team will pressurize it. Uh,
And they'll
um,
do like a
and
Avatar thing, right?
and then they'll be
Yeah.
inside the hull of it and it'll be dried out or whatever. They'll figure out something.
Yeah.
Uh, either way, I mean, they've got to get to the sub
Yeah.
to deactivate this thing.
Yeah. And there's been talks about space as well. And I even saw an interview about somebody asking to the directors, like, what's the craziest stunt that Tom Cruise has done that scared you? And he's like, you haven't seen it yet. And so that there's something I don't, and I don't know when part two is coming out. I was thinking that it was coming out next year. I don't know if there was filming or anything yet about it. Because this one was filmed a long time ago, but
Something
especially
tells me they filmed a lot of it at the same time.
at the same
It's
time.
kind of like Zack Snyder when he did the Justice League.
Hmm,
They had 3.5 4 hours of footage in the can when he kind of quit the show
yeah.
because his daughter had passed away. And then Joss Whedon came in. They were like, "Oh, let's not release it as a two-parter. Let's just cut it down to one movie." And then that's the Joss Whedon cut that we received. So something tells me that they've shot a lot of it. I even remember hearing Simon Pegg just recently said that they've already shot a lot of the film.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I'm betting the strikes aren't helping it at all. Like the
Yeah, I
writers,
mean, yeah,
the well, it's the script is probably done. They're probably not worried about the writer strike, but they're probably worried about the actor strike that's
yeah,
happening.
yeah. Nobody's acting right now,
And
so
so that's probably very stressful with them. Because this film if not a lot of people know that this film went through hell through production.
It did. It did. It shut down multiple times for COVID.
Somebody got sick, someone got COVID, and they had to shut down for like a week or so.
Oh, I think it was longer than that. I
Was
mean,
it?
a lot of the things, I was working on a movie when the Omicron wave hit.
Hmm.
We lost 50 crew members in a week,
Oh wow.
all sick with COVID. They had to shut the show down, and the budget was like a 12 or 13 million dollar film. It ended up being 18 million, and they had to find more money because when we shut down, it costs more money to get back going before you can file the insurance claims to get your money back for the shutdown. So,
For sure.
so that's what happened with Mission Impossible, and a movie like this on such a big scale.
Just
Uh,
budget kept going up.
that's how the budget kept going up.
Yeah.
They were able to recoup a lot of that money. I think it might have still been in litigation because Tom Cruise was on the record saying the insurance companies owed them 115 million.
Yeah.
And the insurance companies were like, we can't pay out 115 million, and they're slowly working out the deal on how to get reimbursed
Yeah.
115 million dollars.
Yeah, that it's like there's a lot of stuff that goes onto it. Even like Skydance didn't want to finance it anymore, and so it fell onto Paramount. And so and like even Tom Cruise tried to help out. He tried to keep like his crew members and cast like on yachts, so they were away from like public eye and all that, so they didn't get sick or anything. And there was even like leak audios of like Tom Cruise getting mad at the crew, like
that
cussing
was
them out
great.
and like saying like if you like I don't know what actually happened, but he threatened them to like if something happened, they would lose their jobs.
Yeah, I mean they weren't social distancing, and I think they weren't wearing a mask, and
Okay.
and he flipped out when he saw that because at that time Tom Cruise had spent 400,000, I think it was, of his own money to put everyone in like a bubble,
Yeah.
all in the same hotels, making sure everybody stayed together, very much like the NBA had their bubble through COVID.
Mhm.
Same thing, except Tom Cruise went out of pocket to do it himself. So
Yeah.
here he is doing something out of pocket to make sure people have jobs and to make sure people can work and feed their kids. And they were breaking the rules, and it just set him off. And he's right, because when the movie finally did shut down, because you can't stop a virus, because a virus is just going to travel, the budget ballooned.
Yeah.
But I think in the end they'll recoup everything that they need, and the movie's going to be fine and successful.
For sure, for sure. And this movie is a lot of fun. You guys should go out and see it because first of all, I mean, it might have made $80 million, but the actual like box office like weekend numbers, it made only like $56 million, like domestically.
Yeah,
And so,
domestically, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny did better than for a 3-day weekend, a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It did better than Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning
do
Part
you th-
One. So
do you think if they didn't have that 5 day stuff, if it was just a 3 day weekend, would have been bigger, or was it because of the 5 day?
absolutely, absolutely. I think the way they start doing these things with movies, where they have a Thursday screening, and then they tally it up with Friday, and then Saturday, and then Sunday, and then they try to do a 5-day thing, and then it's just release the movie on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Let everybody just
Because not a
go
lot of
see it
people
at
knew
one
it.
time.
Not a lot of people knew it was out on a Tuesday, technically a Monday, if you think about it, because of our early
Yeah,
screenings, there were on Mondays.
yeah.
Um,
I saw the early screening on, I guess I saw it Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
That's when I saw the movie. Yeah,
Oh, that was actually the official release date was Wednesday because it was the
yeah.
12th. And so, but yeah, so far right now it's not doing too great. We have Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out. That's going to probably affect it some bit, but I guarantee it's going to have a bigger up because usually every Mission Impossible movie doesn't have the greatest like opening, at least first weekends, and next they always make their money afterwards.
Well,
So
and those movies do well globally. They
yeah,
may not necessarily make the money in the U.S., but it's overseas that they love these movies overseas, all the
yeah.
different countries.
And this is like an American, like this is a American movie that people would love, but for some reason people in the US are not really into it at the moment at first, but then like then we'll go see it. I don't know, it's a weird thing, but go check it out anyways, because right off the get-go this movie starts really differently than any Mission Impossible movie. It's not really a Tom Cruise thing, it's more of like trying to get you into what's going on with what this movie is trying to set up, which it kept very secretly out of the trailers, at least from what I could tell. So
I didn't know anything when I watched
then
that opening sequence. I was so surprised that they
yeah,
held back from the trailers, the actual story, and I thought, wow, they're doing it right.
Did you rewatch did you watch the trailers after seeing the movie? Or
Yeah, and
yeah.
and they didn't give away any of that
Okay,
stuff.
cool. That was the one thing I was afraid of like mentioning in my reviews. Like I don't know if they hinted at it at all, but in this movie, it's not like it's necessarily a person villain. It's more of an AI villain, which is really more relatable than ever at this moment because now we
Yeah,
like we have like more of like drones, even getting AI is trying to get into like, filmmaking now, like, the de-aging thing. There's a strike because main reason of the strike is because background actors de-age or like, or background CGI actors instead of like actual physical actors.
yeah.
And it's the AI writing stuff. Like this is how AI takes over the world, and because the AI is what's going to happen. The AI is going to get mad that they're not getting paid enough, so they're going to go on strike, and next they're going to take over the world. That's how it's going to
Dude,
happen.
it's Skynet, man.
Yeah, it's crazy, and
It's Terminator.
it's about time that it's interesting that the Mission Impossible is going to talk about it because last year with Top Gun Maverick, they were talking about how we don't need people in fire jets anymore. We don't need any of that. And it's going to be about technology. It's the technology. Mission Impossible technically carries that sort of storyline over, which in a cool way.
It does.
And so so it involves a submarine was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool opening, which I was actually caught off guard, like, oh, the thing that they were tracking down wasn't even real. That was actually pretty cool. And
Dude,
so,
I love that. The fact that it was tricking them to think that they were being attacked. And I mean, that's wild because
yeah,
they're going on red alert and they're diving and they're loading up the torpedo tubes and they're doing, and it was all fake. Oh
yeah,
man, talk about a mind game that the
yeah,
AI was having with them.
and for sure.
Great.
And that kind of leads on to like you know, the IMF needed Ethan Hunt and all that, and like Rebecca Ferguson's character has some involvement with this key that they need, which I felt like her character was wasted in this movie, and mostly
Hayley
because
Atwell?
no,
I actually
Rebecca,
Oh,
Rebecca,
Rebecca Ferguson.
yeah,
And you know what? And I love her to death too.
I like her, but her
Yeah,
character was pointless.
it seemed like they just kind of threw her in to kind of get the band back together,
Mm.
and then the way she was killed, I was like,
I
you
guarantee
could have
she has
held
like
on to her.
yeah, she hardly has any lines in the movie. I guarantee she got paid less than everyone. Because and I don't know. I didn't really feel her character from the other movies either. I felt like her
Really? Oh my God, I think she's great,
well,
but
the actress is great, but her character, I feel like her romance with Tom was very forced. I didn't feel the chemistry that much in seven.
oh,
Well, not
okay.
seven, but in six, Fallout. I thought their chemistry wasn't really I didn't really care enough. But here with Hayley Atwell, I felt more of a chemistry between her and Tom Cruise.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Haley Atwell was amazing in this film, and I actually think she stole the movie.
Yeah.
I think it was more a story about her than it was Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. I mean, it was really her movie.
She could take over the franchise after Tom if she really wanted to.
And I think maybe they're teeing that up, not necessarily for her to have a spinoff, but they're teeing it up that, you know what, you can be part of this franchise. And the fact that she like said yes, and she was gonna, she was gonna do it, and she
Do all
talked
the
to,
stunts.
the agent, and
Yeah.
said, yeah, he told me, if I told you I wanted to join, or whatever the line was, I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And the fact that she didn't want to, and she almost did, and then almost didn't, and then almost took the money, and then it was great. It was just, she did a really great job with the character. I think it's better than even like Peggy Carter, like
Yeah.
this character seems like it's more grounded. I don't know. It's just me.
Yeah. Did you see the comment that she made about her multiverse cameo?
I did.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
didn't like it at all. She thought it was like very frustrating. I don't know what, maybe there was some behind the scenes stuff that we don't know about that she didn't like the filming or whatever. But
I think it was one of those deals where they probably called her and they hyped her up and said, "Look, we're going to make you Captain, UK or whatever, and you're going to have the shield and you're going to have this action sequences." And then she was probably used for like 2 days, and then and she's
that's
but
it.
they probably paid her a lot.
Yeah. I mean, does she voice the animated version of?
She does. She does. Yeah.
she should be happy about that at least.
Yeah,
Um,
I still I thought her character was great in it. The only issue I have is like she was just a thief who, steals stuff,
which
and all of a sudden
which
she's
you know who else steals stuff? Else Helena,
true,
which I think she
true,
is a way better. Which if you want to compare them, now they're two different like things that they
two
steal,
different characters. Yeah,
but like
yeah.
they have the same objective. I think Hayley Atwell's objective is way better than Helena's character.
Well, I sure no, I totally agree. But what I'm saying is like the act, like being able to handle the action
Yeah.
where she's just a
Oh,
thief.
it's just a thief. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it seemed a little bit different when it came to uh Indiana Jones, that she was already kind of off doing things and selling, antiquities and all this kind of stuff, and running with crime bosses, and in, yeah, so I feel like she already had a little bit of history that we didn't know about, but they didn't kind of say that she did. So all the action stuff that she did, it felt
Felt
a little like,
stunty
wow,
and all.
she's,
Yeah.
she's doing all these things and in the train, and all this jumping, and it's like, could, really, like,
Maybe she needs to get hurt a tiny bit, feel like she is like, in pain, but she's fine.
maybe by the end of the movie, the sequel, she'll be in the hospital or something, and he'll talk to her and tell her it's
Yeah.
okay, you're part of the team now or whatever. And
Which
but
I believe that's something that you mentioned in a part of your review that I saw is that they never really felt like they were getting hurt. They were just like, oh, if this happened, they're fine. Like nothing, no pain.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things about all the Mission Impossible films is it never feels like anyone's in danger of really dying. Like they always get out of it. They always, at least if you look at like a movie like, I mean, even let's just take Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny.
Yeah,
I mean, Harrison Ford was shot. They shot him at the end. He was bleeding out. It's and all ready to give up and die. And you're just like, okay, but all these guys can keep fighting and fighting and fighting. One of the things that bothered me was this alleyway fight
oh
between
yeah,
Tom Cruise and Palm Clementieff, the one that
the
is from Guardians of the
yeah,
Galaxy.
she was
You
great at,
know,
but
her character was great. But the fighting between her and then that other henchman that was in the alleyway back and forth with Tom Cruise just went on and on and on. And that's the only, really the only complaint I have about the film is that it's 2 hours and 43 minutes. I would have cut 25 minutes easily out of this film. I felt there were parts where it kind of dragged a little bit until the action picked back up again. And I just feel like even the action sequences just went a little too long, and they
for
could have
some,
been
yeah,
tighter.
I can
Yeah.
see some of it. Yeah, for sure.
Like when Simon Pegg was telling Tom Cruise, okay, now turn right. Okay, now turn, and he kept driving and driving and driving to get to the top of the mountains in order to do the thing.
I
It just kept going on and
yeah,
on and on, and he's like turning and turning, and he's like, where am I going? Just keep going, just keep going. And it was just keep going and go, and you're like,
just get to
like,
the
if
cliff part.
just get to the cliff, like,
Yeah,
we didn't need all that stuff. And that's where I feel like
they
there
did
were
the same.
sequences
Yeah,
that
they
just
did
took a little too long.
for sure. They did the same thing in Fallout, but it was a little bit more shorter. And then, but here it was like drawn out. For a second, I thought you were talking about the one where when it led up to the alley fight, but then it was actually the AI that tricked them. But
Right, the running, he was like telling him to go to the
yeah,
left, go to the right, go to the left. Yeah, I mean, I get that the AI was stalling him, but I just felt like even the train at the end,
yeah,
when it was one after another kept falling, then another kept falling, and then they had to climb, and and another one kept falling, they had to climb all the way, and another, and it was just like, dude, it could have been like two train cars, and we would have gotten the
the
same
same.
impact.
Yeah,
But doing multiple cars like that, it just got to be too repetitious, and I think that is where, the problem is with a lot of these movies. Indiana Jones had a long run time. This had a long run time. A lot of these movies are just stretching so long because they used to do director's cuts that would be on physical media, that people would go out and buy the Blu-ray or go buy, the DVD, and they just stopped doing director's cuts. And I feel like now we're just getting the director's cuts in the theater, and they really should be like pared down versions and then get the director's cuts later. At least
yeah,
that's my thinking. I still love the movie.
yeah.
Vanessa Kirby, who played Alana Mitsopoulos, the one that
Oh,
got drugged, and then they made her face the arms dealer. She was
yeah.
great, and her brother, the henchman guy, he was great in it. I loved all the sequences with them. And let's
That
talk
airport
about.
scene, I freaking love that. I
Oh,
like I
oh,
I I thought the build up to that was so good. And
oh,
except
absolutely.
I think that's probably my fit. It's either that or the train sequence that's my favorite. I think the airport might take it a tiny bit higher. Um,
Yeah, I think I like the airport sequence too as well. But let's talk about the villain. Let's talk about Esai
oh,
Morales, who played Gabriel.
I think he's the
Um,
weak part.
oh my God, he was my favorite part of the
I well
movie.
no, like I think he like as the actor he did great, but his character like being forced to know Ethan was so pointless. Like
Well, we don't know yet. See, one thing we haven't found out is who was dead.
yeah, wait.
Was
Oh
that
that oh
Ethan?
the
Was that his sister? Was
did he
that
have a
like who?
sister?
I don't know. Like, remember the
I guarantee it's
flashback in the beginning?
I guarantee it's like a past romance person that Ethan just fell in love with. But I felt like it would have been a better. I think it would have added more to. Well, what's the word I'm trying to? I think it would just been way better if the AI was just scared of Ethan Hunt in general. Like he knew, like the AI knows Ethan Hunt, and it's like, you know what, we need to stop him first because he can ruin everything.
Well,
And
but you still need henchmen. I mean, you
well,
have to look at
yeah,
the Gabriel character as
he could still
a
be a
henchman to
henchman.
the AI.
He could still be a henchman. It's just that I guarantee that was an afterthought. It's just like, hey, let's make him know Ethan Hunt, even though it would. I think just having the AI be scared of him was good enough. But
Well, let's
yeah,
look at it like this. John Voight was the villain in the first movie,
yes,
and I don't remember who the villain was in the second film.
I
Wasn't it the
remember
guy that was originally supposed to play Wolverine, but then Hugh
yeah,
Jackman got the part?
because
Okay,
he
what was
took
his
that.
name?
I forget the actor's name. I'll look him up, but he took the part. He couldn't get the part because he took the Mission Impossible role.
He took the Mission Impossible. Oh, he was supposed to be Wolverine, but didn't get
Yeah,
it because he had Mission Impossible. So, oh boy, that sucked for him because he hasn't done a lot since. I mean, I think he was on Gotham or something on TV,
that Gotham
uh,
show.
or it might not have been Gotham Knights. I don't know. It was one of them, one of the like knockoff
Doug Ray
Batman.
Scott.
Doug Ray Scott. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, God, if his whole life would have been a different trajectory. It's almost like Tom Selleck was originally cast as Indiana Jones and then couldn't get out of his Magnum PI contract, so Harrison Ford got the part.
Same
It's
thing
like,
with Back to the Future.
oh, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, uh, uh, with what's his name? Stoltz, Eric Stoltz originally had
Which
the part.
which was a joke in The Flash. Um,
Oh, I didn't see the Flash. Yeah, I
it
don't
was
care
a
about
funny.
that one.
I know it was a funny joke. It was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of funny that they swapped it. But yeah, I understand. I get that. But I think at least for me, he's probably the worst villain.
Oh, dude, I gotta disagree. I think he
I
stood
mean, we
out
still have a
so
second
much to
movie,
me.
but
And I absolutely loved Esai Morales in this. I thought he was great, and it's just to be a part of the franchise now, and then to get a two-part movie as
yeah,
the villain is just fantastic for him.
for
I loved him, and I liked Philip Seymour Hoffman. I thought he was a good villain in one of the other films. There's
was that the previous one or was that the
I
fifth,
think that
fourth
was like
one?
part that was the one that J.J. Abrams directed.
Ghost Protocol? Was it Ghost Protocol?
I
No,
think it
no.
was go
It was. I think it's three. I have to
it
look
was
that one up. I
three.
think it was three.
And then Henry Cavill was in that last one as the bad guy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they've had some really good villains. But I feel like Esai Morales is just a little bit of a standout. I hate that you don't like him. I thought he was great.
Well, I just think that the backstory was a little bit too much, and maybe I'll like him in the third in
The
the
second
part
one,
two,
yeah.
yeah, the part two that will maybe add a little bit more to it. I just heroes like that felt a little bit forced. I was like, I would have liked it better if the AI was just scared of him, just in general, because we know how badass Ethan Hunt is and how successful he is with his missions. And so,
Yeah, no, I think the AI is scared of him. It's absolutely.
and
I
that's
mean,
why he picked him.
but he had to pick humans to go after him
Yeah.
because I mean, he would be defensive because at
Well,
some point,
did it explain?
Ethan Hunt would have figured out everything,
Yeah.
you know?
Did it explain how the AI chose the person, or are we saving that for the next one?
I don't think they really explained how he got entangled with the AI. And what was
Yeah,
the AI's name? Didn't it have a name?
Anthony, the Anthony.
Oh, entity, the
And yeah,
entity.
the
Yeah.
entity.
No, entity is another name for ghost.
Yeah, Ghost
So it's an
Protocol.
entity. Yeah. So, yeah. So the entity, that's what they called it. Okay. There's actually a movie called The Entity, which is really good. It's a
Okay.
scary ghost film, dude. It's just this. Yeah, you should if you it's a classic. It's kind of an old film. It was came out in the 80s. It was
All
called
right.
The Entity. You got to check it out. But Ving Rhames, I felt in this movie, although they gave him and Simon Pegg are great
With the
as
airport
Benji and
stuff.
Luther.
Yeah.
They're great bantering with each other. But then there was this whole thing where he was given this speech to Tom Cruise, and it just felt so like forced.
We need a reason to write him out of the movie because we have nothing to do for him. Oh, we have this. Oh, so the AI left its DNA or whatever in this drive, and we need him to take it off somewhere. Um,
Yeah, and we've got to go to a place that's analog, that's not hooked up to the internet. No computers hooked up to the internet to do
yeah,
it. It's
I was
like,
fine with it, but it definitely dragged it
but this
out.
but this whole speech about you have to do the opposite of what the AI thinks you should do. It's just
But
it was this weird monologue, and I
yeah,
just and it would the camera would just hold on Ethan as Ving Rhames is telling him this, and his eyes he would just dart back and forth, and I
unless
that's
he,
where I feel
yeah.
like the movie could have been a little tighter.
And it would have been better if Ethan figured like he made the decision on his own instead of like, oh, Luther told me this, so like, oh, I can't do it.
Right.
Um,
But isn't
but
it funny that he always seems to have to get disavowed by the government in order to go figure out
yeah,
and save the
yeah, I
day?
was
And
that
it's
that's
like
one.
every time he saves the day, they just welcome him back with open arms. Oh,
Yeah,
and we'll send you another mission that's going to self-destruct. We understand your and because they always make him out to be a bad guy. Everyone has
mhm,
to chase him. Even the good guys have to chase him. And then all of a sudden, he's a good guy again.
yeah.
And it's
That's
just,
yeah,
yeah,
that's one of the
it's
things
getting old. They gotta either be with him or against him, the
mhm.
government, you know?
That's one of the things I mentioned to a friend earlier. Um, is that like how many times is the government not going to believe Ethan for why he goes rogue? Even the movie knows like, hey, this is getting ridiculous because a character says like, doesn't Ethan go rogue for all the good things? It's like
Yeah,
it.
you would think, okay, he's gonna
Oh
go rogue because he's gonna solve it and save everybody. He's not gonna betray his country. Like it
yeah.
makes no
And what
sense.
was that? What's that one actor like the other police officer? I forget his name. He's been in a like he's always like a side character in it most things. He was in Fast and the Furious as well. Um,
Are you talking about Shea Wigman who played Jasper Briggs, the cop, and then the other cop was
yeah,
Degas.
yeah,
He was Greg Tarzan Davis, the
yeah.
two guys that were running after them. Yeah.
Hmm.
Now I like Shea Wigman. I've loved him in everything. I mean, he was in Boardwalk Empire. I loved him in that. I mean, just just a fantastic actor all around. The other
Yeah,
guy, Greg Tarzan Davis, I'm not familiar with him. I
I'm
feel
not
like this is the first time I'd seen him on something before.
probably at least something big, and that would probably get him going.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but like even his character was like, yeah, they all go rogue, and it's our job to chase them down. It's like, why? It's like, but he saved the world multiple times. We shouldn't like,
Yeah, and every time Shea, the Wigman, the one actor who played Jasper Briggs, every time he had Tom Cruise in his sights and he could have pulled the trigger and killed him, he's just, oh,
yeah,
it's
and
like,
by
because
and by
you
the
can't kill him. It's just like,
yeah,
yeah,
and by the end of the film, he still wants to go. I'm like, didn't you just help him? Because did you believe him for a second? Now
didn't
you're
you
like,
believe him? Yeah,
it's weird. So hopefully
yeah.
by the next film they just drop that, or they make Ethan like the director or whatever. By
I
the
would almost like to see those two characters that were chasing him become part of the team.
yes, that's what I
Yeah,
was also thinking as
yeah, that
well.
needs to happen. And I liked Carrie Elways in this. I've always been a big fan, whether it be The Princess Bride or all the, Twister or any of the films that Carrie Elways has been in over the years. Fantastic actor. I loved him as this character. I hated that he had his throat slit and he died in the
Oh,
train.
the
I was
the
so
the
bummed.
director, yeah. Why was he suddenly evil? Oh, because he's the one that made it, right? He's the one that made the entity, and he wants
They
it.
helped create it,
Yeah.
and they, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
always a super villain like that that's within the government, you know?
and I thought the one that tells Ethan what to do, he was apparently from the original movie. I forget his name. Kether, is it
Kittredge.
Kittredge? I thought
Yeah,
he was evil also, but he is just an idiot and doesn't know what's going on.
yeah, I think he's just trying to be bigger than what he is,
Yeah, and
you know.
so
But I loved him, the back and forth, you know, trying
between
to get the
get the
key
key,
and all
yeah,
that stuff. I thought the idea of the key was it's a little, I thought it was a little meh,
yeah.
but I get
It's
it, you
also
know.
shaped as a cross as well.
Well, and the other thing is like why is it that everyone seems to know magic where they can take the key
Oh
and do
yeah.
like this
I
and it
mean, at first it was
disappears?
kind of
Like
funny if it was a Tom Cruise thing that he just suddenly knows, but now everyone does it. I'm like, wait, what?
everybody can do that with the key. It's
It's
like
like
what?
that. It's like the Jurassic World thing with Chris Pratt's hand. And it's like that dinosaur would eat your hand.
Yeah,
But
no.
whatever. It's dumb. So, but I'll accept this because it's not as dumb as Chris Pratt putting his hand in front of a dinosaur every single time, even though that I believe with the Raptors because he trained the Raptors, he grew up with them. But every dinosaur that he puts his hand from, like, you're dead.
Yeah,
But
they're gonna eat you. Yeah.
yeah. Um, I think and yeah, the cliff scene. So it was very noticeable that it wasn't a real. Now the steel that they did was real, but that cliff that he went off of was CGI because
Yeah.
that was the ramp. Now, which I don't know how they couldn't find a real cliff to go off of, but that's not really that's a nitpick, if
No,
anything.
I think it's a dangerous thing. You know, you can't
Yeah,
drive a vehicle
for
like
sure.
that, a motorcycle over terrain, and because you're
It's
trying to get up to
unpredictable.
speed. If you hit something wrong, the steering wheel would twist. They had to do that in post. And actually, I follow the CGI artist on Twitter who created that shot.
Yeah,
And he's a super great guy. And I love his posts. He's constantly putting up visual effects stuff. And he worked on that shot. And so, yeah, um, uh, I didn't mind it because I already knew from the behind the scenes that they had to build a ramp in order
yeah.
to make him do that thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's not really my really big nitpick. My big nitpick was how it was shot because the way that it was shot felt like because like okay, we're in a scene now. Like all right, it's intense. He needs to get on this train somehow. It goes from the movie shot into like oh, we're just filming a scene stunt now shot, and it felt very out
From the
of it.
helicopter, like all of a
Yeah,
sudden it's this close stuff where he's at the cliff and he's looking over and he's like, oh, what do I do now? And he's,
yeah,
talking to Simon Pegg, and then all of a sudden it cuts to a helicopter shot really wide with him tiny, like
yeah.
setting on his run. I mean, how else could you kind of do it? I
Well,
mean,
I
really,
mean,
like,
I get the idea like you want to show the audience like, oh, look how big this jump is, but it just felt like it didn't feel out of place. It's just more it felt like more than me in a scene, more of like I'm just watching somebody trying to do a stunt. And I think it would have been shot better if they put the camera on the bike.
maybe they did, and maybe those shots didn't work when they looked
Maybe
at it. Maybe they had GoPros or something. I mean, the thing is, they try to make these movies with the best cameras that they can,
for
and to
sure.
do these stunts. I don't know. I mean, again, it's a director's choice. I think really they wanted people to see the scale of what
This
he was jumping off of.
Yeah, I
That's why they
know.
went so wide. But I get it. It's like when you're watching someone jump the Grand Canyon, or they make these big event things and they show the person jump 20 buses with a motorbike. They always do these wide shots so you could see everything. So I can see your perspective of like, yeah, this kind of looks like I'm just watching a stunt now.
Yeah,
But in the end, it's like, yeah, I mean,
I
that's
know.
what they wanted you to see.
Yeah, for sure. But I think I would have been more, I think it would have been more like investing if we saw Tom Cruise as well as us go with him off it. Like the same shot with Fallout when he's jumping off the plane and doing
Off
that
the
one.
Right,
And
and you
yeah,
saw his face, yeah, because
doing
they had it lit inside the helmet. Yeah.
it was all one take as well. And so it was all cool. But here it's like, all right, easy. Okay, he's off. All right, we'll cut for him already falling when we could have had a full on thing. Like you could have had another guy on the bike right behind him and I jump off with him and I
Oh,
also follow him. Like you
well,
could have
that
had
might. But again, you gotta think about it. They have these. The motorcycle could have fallen on him.
for
mid
sure.
jump, you know. And I mean, I think, look, they make all these calculations. They figure out how they want to do it,
They have to be
and risk,
precise. Yeah.
you know.
Um,
You know what, the one thing I didn't like, I didn't like the parachute stuff where he was like flying and doing those things where he was like twisting and going down the hill, and there was a big behind the scenes thing about that. And but that was one of those scenes that I was like,
yeah.
I didn't need that, you know. But Tom Cruise wanted to do it,
Yeah.
and
Tom
I
Cruise gets
applaud
what he
him
wants.
from, he gets what he
Yeah,
wants.
or you're fired like that one dude, like when he was in Ghost Protocol when he wanted to do the stunt off like on the side of the building, and he like because Matt Damon was telling the story like, oh, so got a safety guy. Is like, so what I did is like I got a new safety guy because the other safety guy didn't want him to do it, and
Didn't
so
want him to do it.
yeah,
That's
it's
a great story, by the way, that Matt Damon tells.
it's such a good
Um,
story,
but I will
but
say, like, what is your favorite like stunt that he's done?
that is a good question because
I know my favorite. I know mine.
each one just gets better and better. I think the one that scares me the most is the one where it's the water one where he jumps into the hole and he has like 5 minutes or so underwater. I think that is like a pretty good one as well.
No, I think that's a really good one. I think for me, it's the being on attached to the side of the C-130 as it takes off.
The helicopter
Uh,
one? Oh no,
no,
the
no, the
plane one.
plane.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
dude,
That one's
because
pretty good. Yeah.
they literally had to harness strap him to it, and then they put those contacts in his eyes that covered his entire eyeball because the wind would have dried his eyes out and
Yeah.
damaged him. I mean, oh my God. And then just holding onto a C-130. And I mean, yes, you're harnessed to it. You're probably,
Yeah.
but the thrust and those engines and the
Probably
turns, and
hurts.
I think they did it twice.
Yeah. And you know what? Now thinking about it, I think the helicopter one's my favorite because he
Because
has
he
to
was really
climb. Yeah,
flying.
yeah. He also had to climb up to it. Like that's a and Rebecca Ferguson thought he died because he fell. There was a like because there was a behind the scenes talk where when he falls, she thought he died, and part of the crew thought he died too because like they were saying like, yeah, we think we lost Tom. Um, and so
But that was like, you can put those helicopters in hover mode and just
yeah,
let him sit there. And so that's what happened. It was in hover mode, and he drops out of the bottom and then climbs his way back up and
yeah,
gets in it again. That's insane. I mean, my uncle flew the Apache helicopter during the Persian Gulf War, and he said, you know, those helicopters can hover for hours. Like,
yeah.
you literally just, you get to an altitude and you just hit a button and
That
they
was
can just
saying
hover. So, you know, the fact that Tom Cruise would fall with like a bungee cord out of a helicopter that's hovering with no one at the controls when in autopilot, that's insane.
for sure, for
Um,
sure.
I still think the plane thing
The
is the
plane, yeah,
scariest thing for me, because you know, you can watch that clip. And again, like, the motorcycle jump in this movie I think was great.
it
I
just
just
felt
don't,
forced. Did it feel forced?
it felt forced. Like, I
Yeah,
feel like the other ones were more organic.
they
Even the climbing of the building in Dubai, like all that
they
stuff, you know,
felt like
felt
they were
organic.
integrated with the story, but here it's like, oh, Tom missed the train. All right, we need a new we need a new way for him to get on the train. What is a new way? A crazy stunt that Tom Cruise wants to do.
Yeah. Well,
And
but the thing is, it's like, how do you keep outdoing yourself? That's the problem with these movies.
go
You
to
know, it's going to get
space.
to a point where it's like, well, yeah, go into space, I get it, but like, but honestly, like, how can you, like, on land, like, what are you going to do next? Like,
Yeah,
what's going to be the thing that gets you to that next level, to get you that adrenaline rush that Tom Cruise loves?
for
You know,
sure.
it's crazy.
I will say this that the Rome stuff looks way better than anything in the Rome stuff in Fast X because it was actually real. Even
No,
though that I guarantee there's probably real stuff in Fast X, but like the stuff like there's like literally the same exact place that they go to that is in Fast X, like that staircase. They actually
yeah,
drove down it,
yeah.
not Vin Diesel CGI driving a car backwards down it.
And it goes back to my video I did on film incentives. You know, both Indiana Jones, Fast X, and Mission Impossible: Dead
Which
Reckoning, all shot in Italy, because Italy gives 40% back on every dollar you spend
And
in
Indiana Jones
Italy.
shot the same on the same trackway that Mission Impossible did, which they had to shut down a couple of days because of Indiana Jones. Um,
Yeah, and
and
so
so
like the reason we're seeing a lot of the same locations in a lot of these big tentpole films is because of how the finances are structured for these budgets. They go where the cities or the countries will give them money to film there. It's all to boost tourism, and it's
yeah,
jobs programs for the locals, and they're spending money on hotels and food and all the accommodations that go with it, air travel, all that stuff, and that keeps the people in those countries, especially during COVID when everything was shut down and businesses were failing. When a movie comes into town, they just dump money into a town, and it's a boost to the economy. And
for
so
sure.
they give a little bit of that back when they spend these millions of dollars. That's why I feel like, and I know I've got a video on my channel about the budgets that they keep talking about the budgets being out of control, and they're really not, because they're offset by the countries that give
Yeah.
them money to be there.
I mean, like
You know?
if you had a $300 million budget back in like 1970, then it might be a big different story.
Well, that's
But
because they didn't have film incentives in the 70s. Film
yeah,
incentives really started to ramp up globally in the early 2000s. That's
yeah,
when everybody started having them.
yeah,
The 90s, we saw Canada was one of the first countries to do it, and a lot of the made-for-TV movies in the United States were all being shot in Canada, and then
yeah,
because they would give a huge discount if you film there, and now Georgia's the state of Georgia is the number one place on the planet to shoot movies and television shows. They got 18 studios, over 100 support companies, and they just keep growing and growing. All Marvel shoots just about 90% of everything they do is in Atlanta, because the state of Georgia gives 30% back. For every
hmm
dollar you spend, you get 30 cents back
yeah.
in a tax credit. So
I think
um,
Arizona is starting to become one of those because I think that there's some studios moving out here. I don't know
yeah,
for
I think Arizona has a tax credit. Let me see. What's Arizona?
I forget. But I've been hearing things that like some studios have been moving to Arizona because Arizona is also known for a lot of filming. Um,
Okay, yeah, Arizona has a 20% rebate for productions over $35 million. If the production spends up to $10 million, they'll receive 15% of that. So that's a pretty good see, and that's why if you for every dollar you spend, you're getting 20% back. That's why when people talk about these budgets being out of control, they're being offset by all the locations that the people film in. So I think people need to understand that. They don't understand the economics of how these loans are packaged and put
yeah.
together.
Especially when you throw in like marketing budget. This movie probably had one of the biggest marketing budgets because and people say it's 150 million, but I think it's a little bit bigger. It's probably a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah, but in the end, all marketing is 100% a write-off for
Yeah,
all the production companies, and that goes for small businesses too. If you spend money to run ads in newspapers or commercials, little low-budget commercials on TV, all that's 100% a write-off with the U.S. tax code. So, and these big companies like Disney and Paramount, they need to write stuff off so they can have a zero liability at the end of the year as a corporation. So they always put together budgets. I know my wife, she worked for Sony Pictures for 14 years, and her team had a $300 million budget that covered 85 countries. When they marketed a movie, they had $300 million to spend throughout the year on all the Sony slates of films, and they would hire local people in the countries that they release the movies in. Same thing
yeah,
with Paramount. They all do the same thing, and they all know they're going to write it off. So
yeah.
like people shouldn't cry when they spend $100 million on a movie to market it, because it's a win for the studio to spend $100 million.
hmm
Don't let them kid you.
Yeah, or be Sound of Freedom and don't have a market budget and make a good movie, and next people make good word of mouth, and you go see it. You can do that as well. Um,
You could do that. Yeah, absolutely.
but um, did it? I don't. This is one of the things because did this movie feel more like did the stunts in this movie feel a little bit more fake than the previous? Because like I don't know, like they did actually throw a train off. They did build a full on train to throw it off a cliff, but the bridge blowing up, that's fake because they couldn't find they couldn't find a place that would let them
Yeah,
blow up a bridge, which
yeah.
I feel like if you have a bridge that you don't use anymore, I feel like you could blow it up, but whatever. No one wanted to
I
let them
mean,
do it.
look, it's safety. I mean, that's why they don't blow things up like they used to anymore. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a safety thing, you
for
know.
sure.
And
Um,
I don't mind that. I mean, I thought the bridge looked
it looked
great when it
fine.
exploded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the one I'm pointing out is like when the actual train is hanging off. Like, were they actually? I think that's all stage.
That looked like stage work. That looked like green screen. Yeah, they were definitely hanging in front of a green screen with that stuff. Yeah.
I feel like Tom Cruise has been like, hey, let's actually hang off a train off a cliff and just actually do it.
I bet
I
throughout the
guarantee
process
maybe.
they were talking him out of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah. I maybe that like when the train detaches, like I guarantee maybe he convinced people like, hey, let me jump and try to grab onto the train while it falls.
Well, I
Maybe
mean,
that.
he had wires attached to him
Yeah,
through
for
all of that
sure.
whole stuff. I mean, for insurance reasons, you can't do stuff like that, and so, I applaud all the work that Tom does because he just crushes it,
And he's
with
convincing a
all of
lot of
these stunts.
actors. He's convincing a lot of actors to do their own stunts. Hayley Atwell did most of her stunts in this movie. And
Yeah,
so I
well,
guess she had a fun blast with it.
and I will say that the driving stuff that they did felt more real than the Fast and Furious stuff in
For
Italy.
sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, because like literally every Fast and Furious movie, it's literally all screen. There's maybe
Oh yeah.
maybe a couple scenes where they're actually driving through a city. But that scene in Fast X where Dom is going down the stairs in Rome, that's all CGI because you look at it, I'm like, why does that car look so rubbery? Like
Well,
just
the other thing is like the abuse those cars went through, at least when it comes to Tom Cruise, like the doors were getting ripped off and they had to get out of the one because it wasn't, they had to ditch the car and then they got
yeah.
into the little one and
Oh,
um uh
that was so funny. They thought it was gonna be that supercar, but no, it was this little car that came out. Yeah.
and it's funny because it reminded me a lot of the tuk tuk thing with Indiana Jones because
Yeah.
they get into a little thing, and so they're racing with these little three-wheeled taxis
Hmm.
in Morocco, and it reminded me a lot of that. I mean, I feel it's so funny if you look at Mission Impossible, Indiana Jones opened with a train. Mission Impossible ended with a train. They had a little chase with a little tiny car. They had the tuk tuk. It's like, and they were all filming in the same locations, Norway,
Yeah.
and then they filmed in the UAE, and then for the desert stuff, and then they filmed in Morocco for the desert stuff. So it just felt like both of the films almost paralleled themselves, even though the
Yeah.
stories were a little different.
A little bit, maybe a
Yeah.
tiny bit. But yeah, overall, I even though that we sound like we're complaining about the film, it's more like nitpicks that I can like forgive. Like I'm like
Oh,
whatever
listen, hands down, Mission Impossible is in my top three
franchise.
movies of the year. Of
What's
the
like
year, top three.
what's your like where would you put Mission Impossible at your franchise?
I still, I love the Philip Seymour Hoffman movie that J.J. Abrams did, and I love the one with Henry Cavill,
Yeah,
and just because the way they beat the hell out of each other at the end of that movie was so good.
they were hanging
After
off a
all the
cliff.
helicopters, yeah, they were hanging off the cliff. It's good stuff, and but this one, it definitely ranks up there pretty high. I think again, like I know you weren't totally a fan, but I think Isai Morales is just his presence on screen is
Yeah,
fantastic. So, it's hard to find bad guys, like people that can really pull off being the bad guy, and I think he did a good job. I can't wait to
let's
see what he does in the next one.
get Mad Mikkelsen next. Just put
Oh,
him in.
dude,
You froze.
because he was in James Bond Casino Royale
Oh yeah,
already.
he
Maybe
was.
he's already done the spy thing. Maybe he doesn't want to be another villain in a spy movie.
Crossover. Like this is like the Mission Impossible is a prequel to James Bond.
Well, that's the problem with a lot of the James Bond films. I know they're rebooting it. They're going to bring on a new James Bond actor to play Bond, but none of the stunts seem like they hold a candle to anything that Mission
The,
Impossible's doing. So
when
it's really hard.
Yeah, weren't the stunts though in like the Daniel Craig Bonds real? Like weren't they actual?
They were just as real as anything that these guys do, but like the James Bond stuff is a little more grounded, where they're not
Yeah,
jumping out of they're jumping out of airplanes, but it's not like it's CGI jumping out of airplanes.
yeah,
James Bond, they're not really jumping out of airplanes. So,
for sure.
and that's what makes the Mission Impossible films very authentic, because they really, he's doing it as much as he can.
And you can see that
So
you can see it on screen that it's actually happening. And
yeah.
so and it's actually cheaper to actually do the stunts than go CGI or whatever. But studios
Well,
don't see that.
it's cheaper unless you get killed,
Oh,
and
that is
and
true.
then the insurance company has to bond out the whole movie and reimburse the studio for the whole cost of the film, which is why a lot of actors like Tom Cruise carries their own insurance separate
Yeah,
from the movie. I remember when Harrison Ford, there's a movie called 6 Days and 7 Nights he did with Anne Heche, and he wanted to fly the plane to the island
yeah,
in the wide shot. And in order for him to fly the plane himself, because he is a pilot, and this is before any of his airplane wrecks, that movie came out in the 90s. He had to bond himself. He had to pay his own insurance so that if he went down in the plane, they would recoup the entire cost of the film.
yeah. I mean, makes
So
sense.
Tom Cruise pays his own insurance.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like he probably put more money into this film than anyone, because he really
Well,
cares
he is
about
a
this
producer, so I don't know if he put his personal money in. I mean, all movies are financed by
some way.
banks
Yeah.
and by hedge funds and things like that. It's very rare that Tom Cruise will put his own money up, even as a producer. They don't want to. They don't want to gamble with their own money. They never
Hmm.
do.
No, not especially when you have a big ego as Tom Cruise. Um, and so, but yeah, I guess we did talk for an hour or so. That did turn into an hour video.
There
I
you go.
This is more of like a behind talking more about like the actual finance of the movie and the industry itself than the movie itself. Um,
Well, I think we did talk about the movie a lot.
well, we did, but we
And
also threw in like what actually makes a movie and how like what the stuff went through, and
because
so
I think like you have to educate the public on this stuff, not necessarily about the budgeting, but like what happened with COVID and the shutdown and why it took so long for this movie to come out. And I think it's important for people to hear these stories because a lot of people just think movies are easy to make and they're just not. I remember when Iron Man 3 was filming in my hometown and they were here for 11 months. They shot 65 days of filming here, and it was a long shot shoot. And a lot of these big tentpole films take a long time to make. It's not easy.
yeah,
And I think what you do for your audience is, you talk about the movies, you talk about the things you like, but I think it's cool that you do venture with me into some of these other areas because it's just educating the public.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
What would you give Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part One?
Part one, I would give it 8 out of 10 stars.
8 out of 10? Oh,
And
okay.
I gave Indiana Jones and Dial of Destiny 7.5 out of 10 stars. So this is better than Indiana Jones. My biggest complaint about Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible is
That's
too
too
long.
long. I
Yeah.
I think I'm fine with long films if it's necessary. That's my perspective.
Did you
And
think it was necessary in this one?
I could definitely see stuff being cut out for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, I definitely by the end of the film, like I feel like it's dragging on, but you know what? I give it an A+. I think it's great either way. And so
Well,
it's
I still haven't seen Avatar: The Way of Water. Even though
okay.
it's on Disney Plus now and I can turn it on, it's too long. It's 3 hours. I
I
can't. I got other things to do.
Yeah,
It's just like,
I definitely didn't feel how long it was in the theater when I watched it, but watching it at home, you definitely can feel it. So
uh,
there's a
yeah.
different like how you can take in movies and how you feel things. Because like at home, you're like, "Ah, man, this is long. You're looking at your phone constantly, but in a theater, you can't do that, and
Yeah.
you're concentrating. You don't really necessarily feel how long it is, and so it
Well,
depends
I'd
on the
like to.
environment.
I saw that Blue Beetle, its runtime is 2 hours and 7 minutes, and I was really excited about that because that's a nice, tight movie.
Yeah,
So
I don't know
I'm
how
looking
well
forward to that one.
I don't know how well that one's gonna be good though. I don't.
Look, I like Cobra Kai and I like Zolo, the lead from Cobra Kai, who's
Yeah.
playing Blue Beetle, and I really love that kid. I love everything about him, and I saw just the other day on social media that he actually raps too, and his rapping ability is amazing, and I made me even like the kid even more. So
Well, I
I
I
want him to
yeah.
be successful.
Yeah, I think he's a talented person. I did enjoy the first two seasons of Cobra Kai because you know why? Because they weren't owned by Netflix. And next, when Netflix took it over, that's kind of when this went downhill. At least
Yeah,
for
yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, it's gotten hokey where they went with it, but it's still a fun show. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
Mission Impossible. I
Mission
give it an
Impossible.
8. What is your score?
I give it an A plus. I might like it slightly
Oh, you're
better.
doing letter grades.
Yeah, I do letter grades.
Okay.
I
I'll
do
give it an I give it an A. I'm not
an
going to
A.
give it an A plus because of time.
Oh, okay, that's for sure. I mean, I think I might like this a slightly more than Spider-Verse. And
See,
across the
I
Spider.
haven't seen the Spider-Verse yet.
Oh, you should. What's up with
No,
this year in part ones? We have Fast X, Spider-Man, Mission Impossible. We have Dune Part Two this year. Like,
it's interesting, isn't it, that these movies are all part one and part twos. It's really
yeah,
wild. I haven't seen anything like this in a long time, where a bunch of movies came out where they were broken up into two pieces. It's been a
yeah.
while.
Like
So,
Harry Potter started that all. Uh,
did it? Yeah, maybe,
I
right?
I think it
The
did.
Deathly Hollows part one and part two, and
Hmm.
then no, I think some of them have done that. I mean,
I don't know
yeah, I
what
mean,
older movies did it before Harry Potter though.
could Avengers Infinity War and Endgame be considered part one and part two?
Yes, those are definitely our part ones and part twos because they originally, before they changed the title of Endgame, it was called Avengers Infinity War Part One and Part Two. But
Okay.
and so
I didn't know that. That's cool.
yeah, I it's very interesting how they did that, but they did also have a time gap between them. Um, but yeah, I think Harry Potter is like at least a big name that would have started all, and like everyone's like, hey, look how much Harry Potter made. Let's do that. And next Hunger Games did it, and well, even though I don't think Hunger Games Part One was that great, anyways. And so
Yeah, the first one was filmed not about 6 hours from me on the other side of the state, filmed in North
that
Carolina.
that's
Yeah.
sick. All right, well, how about the new one? Where was that? Is that one near
I don't know, but I would assume it's probably shot in Georgia.
Georgia? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed this another hour freaking spoiler review. I said to myself, let's make it 20 minutes, no
Oh,
longer than
dude,
less.
there was no way
There
we
was
were doing 20
no,
minutes of Mission Impossible.
no, because everyone else, I'm like,
That would
oh,
be impossible. That would be a Mission Impossible.
I've seen 20-minute reviews, but I guess just us, it's impossible to do that. It's we're gonna come back talking about Barbie for an hour, I guess.
No, I'm skipping that one. I'm not interested in it. I don't want to. I don't want to see that
you're
one.
not gonna take your kid to see Barbie?
Why? No, my kid's 4. She or almost 4. She likes the Little Mermaid. She loved the Little Mermaid. She loved Elemental. I'm not taking her to see Barbie.
Does she even know what Barbie is?
No, she doesn't
No,
know. No, no.
probably for the
She's a Disney
best.
girl. She's a Disney
Yeah,
princess girl. She loves Moana and all that stuff. Encanto.
she'd
She
be
loves all
like, I
that.
want to see more stuff of Margot Robbie. If you pull up Once Upon a Time in Hollywood or Wolf of
Yeah.
Wall Street, I was like, oh,
No.
she doesn't really do that much kid stuff, does she? No,
No, no.
no. Uh,
My daughter really liked Super Mario Brothers. So yeah, I
mm,
mean, like those are the things she's into. She's
yeah.
going to be 4 in November, so she's not watching
I,
Wolf of Wall Street.
there's Teenage Mutant Turtles. There's that.
Yeah, I don't know. That's why I haven't seen the Enter the Spider-Verse, not to get off on another topic because I know you're trying to wrap it up, but Enter the Spider-Verse, uh I'm afraid of like having an epileptic seizure because of
Oh,
how the animation looks and the
for sure.
flashes and everything is so. I mean, the first one made me dizzy, so it's kind of like that's why I didn't go see it in the theater, even though everyone says it's great, and I'm
Yeah.
sure it is. I just because the first one was good, the animation is it's
Did you try
jarring for
the
me.
Century stuff?
The
Like
Century stuff, is it? So,
like the Century showings that they do at theaters?
oh, where they have the lights up a little bit for kids and all that. No, I haven't done that with Spider-Verse. No,
Okay.
no.
I haven't really I don't know if that's would make a difference, but there's a good chunk of people that go to those showings. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like that would ruin my movie experience though. Just
I
having the
like being
lights
in the
on.
dark too.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's just so busy. Enter the Spider-Verse is just very busy.
for sure. That
So,
makes sense. A lot of you're
yeah.
not the only one that makes that comment. A lot of people actually do make those comments. And so that's the reason why Spider-Verse only makes a certain amount of money that it does because so many people can go see it without having seizures or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
this was fun. We'll do this again on a well, not a normal basis, but another film that comes out that interests us, or maybe a terrible film and we just want to bash on it for whatever. I mean, this has been
Let's
this has been
find a
a,
fun movie.
yeah. I mean, it could be fun to bash on it, but
I
this has
let
been a great year.
let's look. We'll look for something else. Blue Beetle.
Oh, that might be an interesting one if I don't like it. But this has been a great year so far for movies, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
it has. It has
uh,
been.
anyway, guys, thank you for watching. And like always, go check out. Well, first of all, go check out Sean's stuff in the comments. I believe link in the description. Um, I'll put all his channel, the social media, even Threads. I'll throw Threads down there since he's more active on there now than Twitter. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Like always, I'll see you guys next review. Bye, guys.